Can't believe it is Monday again. Hi, I'm Russ Kane. This is the Daily Show on Men's Radio Station. Did you have a good weekend? Was it okay? Hope it was all right. Before we start, got a very big show today. Something that I've had more emails about these particular guests and this particular event than I've had in, I think, the International Space Station construction. Anyway, I'm looking forward to it. It's important stuff. Before we get off to anything else, we live in a dark, shitty world. We really do. So comedy always helps. Comedy is a wonderful thing. And over the weekend, Matthew Perry died. Matthew Perry, who was Chandler Bing, or Chandler Bong, as we love to call him, from Friends. I thought he was the best thing in Friends. I could have lived without most of the others, to be honest with you, but I thought he was just fantastic. He died at 54. And the point I'm making is that to maybe the rest of the world, he had everything. He had money, beautiful home, fame, fortune, everything that goes with it. But he had his demons, and we've all got demons. And those are the demons that we try and fight every single day. That's why I co-founded Men's Radio Station, along with my pal, Howard Jameson. It's important stuff. So to Matthew Perry's family, they won't be hearing this or knowing it, but thank you for brightening up a rotten world. Right, you know him, you kind of love him. The late Mr. Neil Long.
Late? I'm not late.
Neil, hello. Sorry to wake you. How are you? Are you okay? You are, mate. Anyway, we're going to introduce our guests right now because they've been patiently waiting in the digital green room, enjoying our digital coffee and our digital Danish that we'll be sending the bill. So, Carol Spears and Daniel, hello. How are you?
Hi.
Hello.
Can you hear us?
Yep.
That's all right. It's no good trying telekinesis. It ain't going to work. Tell us all about yourself, Carol. We'll start with you because I've never had so many emails from anybody in my life. So tell us all about yourself and what this is all about.
Okay, well, how long have you got? Not that long. Okay, right. Let's start off with by profession, I'm a therapist. I also head up a stress charity, stress management and mental health charity called the International Stress Management Association. And I've been their chair for many, many, many years. And I founded International Stress Awareness Day in November 1998. So we're now looking at 20.
Wow, I thought it was much newer than that. Carol, I just got to warn you, we have on Carol, whoa, hang on. Just to warn you, we suffer from an enormous lag. God only knows why, but we do. It sounds like Neil and I are talking over each other. We're not. So just leave a little bit of gap if you could, because otherwise it just sounds chaotic. And we've got enough of that in the world at the moment. So you founded this in and Neil's gone again. I don't know where he's gone. You founded this in 98, you're saying?
1998 is when I founded National Stress Awareness Day, and to celebrate and to recognize 20 years later its anniversary, on behalf of ISMA UK, I founded International Stress Awareness Week, and today is International Stress Awareness Week, the start of International Stress Awareness Week.
So why does it matter? Why does it matter so much? I think I know the answer, but I'd love to hear it from you. Why stress is a word that's bandied around, I think, almost too much. And I think it's helpful to get a really clear definition of it, because I know we've all experienced it, and I'm not minimizing it, not at all. But let's hear it from you, Carol.
Okay, people very often ask me, Neil, what exactly is stress? And very, very simply, stress is too much pressure. So pressure is good for you. Pressure gets you up in the morning. Pressure is a motivator. When you get too much pressure, then it becomes stress. Stress is what you can't cope with, what you can't manage, and stress is when you're out of control. And it shows itself in many ways, psychologically.
Because in my most stressful moments, I recently read a brilliant book by a neuroscientist, because all this stuff really, really interests me, Carol. And she said for most people, it's not the one big thing, It's the tons and tons and tons of little things, which we feel because of how we've got ourselves framed as human beings in this Western society, that we should be on top of everything, particularly men, but probably women too, all the time, have all the answers, and there's a certain shame for not having that. And that was certainly a factor with me when I got overstressed and I felt a bit unwell. It was 3 years ago now. And I was off work with stress, and I've been in the work world since I was 16. And I felt shame about that. I just wanted to put that out there just in case anyone else thinks the same things. But the effect it has on us physiologically, you're right, a certain amount of stress, it can be good. It can be a motivator. I've heard of eustress, which is positive stress. Maybe riding a roller coaster would be eustress. It's stressful, but it's great fun. But when it crosses into distress, this is when we have a problem, right?
I think the thing is what we're looking at, it's different for everybody. Some people
Daniel,
Hello.
Daniel, you're sitting there very quietly. Tell us about yourself and how you're involved with all of this, please.
Okay, well, as you know, my name's Dan. I accidentally started the charity called Man Up, and the website's called manup.how. Might as well chop that one in there. I started it on the 4th of March 2019 after the passing of Keith Flint, who I knew very well. Used to race motorbikes with him, DJ back with him in the back of the day, and it hit me like a ton of bricks. And
you used to work with Keith Flint. That's so cool.
Yeah, I used to be heavily involved in the illegal raves and the rave scene and all this kind of stuff, DJing and promoting. So, yeah, it was a different life to where I am now. Put it that way. But as say that.
Where are you now?
As in me as a person, or the charity, or how do you mean? Sorry.
Well, I'm always interested in your journey. So you've gone from doing illegal raves to where you are now. Why did you do that? What was your moment when you thought, geez, I don't want to do this anymore?
Well, to be honest, I stopped doing the raves and the DJing because I got a tumor in my neck, and it basically paralyzed my right hand side. So I decided to get a normal job and try and fit into normal society, which I don't think I've quite fitted there yet after like 20 odd years. But yeah, so rather than organising illegal raves, now I've somehow accidentally started this charity. And when I say that,
and how's the charity going? I presume the name of the charity, Man Up, is ironic because it's one of the things that you get told to do, which is very, very unhelpful.
Which is why we always put the term. We always have our branding as Man Up, always with a question mark, and even our website is manup.how. Because do you know what the true meaning of man up is, according to the Oxford Dictionary?
Well, you're gonna tell us, Dan.
Of course I am. And allegedly, since 1864, the true meaning of man up is to be brave enough to deal with an unpleasant or an awkward situation. It's written there in black and white in arguably the Bible of the English language. So what we try and do is take it back to what the Oxford Dictionary says. We're very much of just like speak to the people around you. Up to a point, man up in a good way, the way we mean it. Speak to the people around you, tell your missus that something's wrong, and just nip stuff in the bud before it turns into a problem. And I think somebody said here earlier on is...
That's exactly what I was saying earlier on. A big problem for me was that I felt that I wasn't man enough. I should, dangerous word, have all the answers, you know what I mean? And I should just man up in the bad way. And it's more than not helpful. It could be bloody dangerous. It really, really can, because to have that peer support, particularly of other men or women, I don't mind, but to have that people around you that have got your back, that is so important. And that goes for all of us. For what it's worth, I'm a DJ myself, and I was really affected by Keith's death. I was such a fan. I used to fondly say Prodigy was music made by nutters for nutters, and I say that in the loveliest way. Thought they were fantastic. Still do.
Yeah, I guarantee he'll shake your hand for saying that. I'd absolutely guarantee that.
I would shake his heavenly hand at any point for that. Absolutely, yeah. Brilliant contribution to the music world. Fantastic.
Yeah, Absolutely. I forgot where we were now. But anyway, where were we? Sorry, someone catches back up.
Manning up in a good way.
Yeah, so I think that's what we.
Talking
That's what
about
we
DJs.
got a bit of lag, I think.
We have.
Do,
Throw to Russ.
do I keep talking or?
No, we're listening to you, Dan. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. So one of the, as I say, so what we try
don't
to
like silence. So please.
no, that's absolutely fine. So what we try to actively promote is nip stuff in the bud early, rather than letting day one's problems turn into day two problems, day two problems turn into day three problems. And I've seen this time and time again, including myself on my high functioning BPD. Even as a bloke, when I talk about borderline personality disorder, I have to get in the word high functioning. I'm one of the good ones. I don't know why. I think women don't do that. They just say they've got BPD. I have to nip in I'm high functioning because I don't know what it is. But anyway,
what's the difference between a high functioning person with BPD and a not normal one, should we say?
John, it's a good question. No one's asked it, even though I've said it for 3 years of running a charity. High functioning is we can fit into society quite absolutely fine, and nobody will notice. The people who know us directly would probably know. But put it this way, Ministry of Sound, I was warming up for Prodigy in the early 2000s. I was racing motorbikes, and when I tried to go legal and work in call centres and selling insurance, I was one of the best salesmen on that call centre floor. Nobody noticed that I was absolutely struggling with depression and anxiety and all of these problems. And sadly, most of the people who have got high functioning are the ones we read in the papers. They never saw it coming.
Because nobody notices. And how many times do we say that? We never saw it coming. And I think also, I like what you're saying, and I'm sure Carol will endorse this as well when we talk to her some more. It's about having almost preventative strategies in place, knowing what to do. So at the very least, when something does happen, you've got a tool to go to, rather than trying to commit to a whole new learning curve at a time that your mind is in the least receptive place to even engage in that kind of thing. A learning curve at the time you least need it is the phrase that I use. Do you agree with that?
I'd absolutely agree with that, but I'd also I think what's happening more so in the mental health world, mental health first aiders tend to be the worst ones. Is we're training people to look for the wrong problem, but to look for the wrong signals. Like I was saying earlier, is when I'm in my worst moments of being stressed out, depressed, completely and utterly burnt out. I was DJing at Glastonbury.
Good God!
No, nobody had.
Carol. Carol, tell us what you hope to achieve with your week, because it's a heck of a thing to undertake, and it's very laudable.
It is quite an undertaking. And
yes, I don't want to say it's stressful. That would probably defeat the object.
No, we mustn't say it's stressful. And Dan with Man Up is one of our sponsors, so we're absolutely thrilled and delighted to be working alongside Dan. What Dan has picked up is one of the reasons as to why we're doing this. And we're obviously having Stress Awareness Week, but we don't just talk about stress for 1 week only. We have to be talking about it right throughout the year. And what Dan has said very eloquently is the fact is that you can talk about it, but if you don't have people listening to you and actively listening to you, you don't have the courage to actually speak up and speak out, because no one's going to listen to you. The word man up, people can very often say man up, yes, to a bloke, or sometimes people could be told, just pull yourself together. That's also can be said.
Yeah,
that's
very helpful. Carol, that's very helpful. Pull yourself together. As I always say on this show, saying to somebody who has problems, pull yourself together is like someone with a broken leg, and you say, well, run around the garden, you'll feel better. It's just not
dreadful.
Going to
it is absolutely dreadful, Russ, but that is what is said. So what we want to try and do is to make sure that we are listening. We're looking out for the signs and symptoms of stress. They're there. You may want to ignore them, but they're absolutely there. And they are there for everybody to see. But people don't very often say, hello, and how are you? And wait long enough for a response. It's almost like, hello, how are you? Fine. That's almost like it becomes
well, it's just
sentence.
Words, isn't it? But Carol, how are you? When you say to somebody, how are you? It's word salad. It's meaningless. absolutely
people-
meaningless.
Yeah.
Because unless you
And
wait for a proper response, it's a nonsense.
And people
I'm going
don't-
back to my experience now,
This
Carol.
is coming
I
in
needed
from
that.
America. Here's a comment. Here's a comment. I'll keep going. Here's a comment coming in from America, which is from Clark Gilbert, who's been very open with us in the past, and he watches from the States, as does Azadon Brown, as does
Hey, Clark.
Elizabeth Green, a load of other people. Seriously, when I have a stressful day at work, I pop in my local cigar lounge. I'm with you, Clark. Smoke a cigar. It does work for me. That's why I have my every Saturday morning with my
And I
two
think the
pals.
point
That's
that
what keeps me
discuss
going and
is
keeps me sane. Without that, I think I'd be a gibbering wreck.
if that's what works for him, that's fine. The most important thing is to know when you're stressed, to know what you can do about it for you. For everybody, it's different. You know, some people want to go for a walk, some people want to go swimming, some people want to talk to somebody. It's different for everybody. That's most important. But you need to have permission. We need to give ourselves permission that it's actually okay to speak up and to speak out.
Because I would not give myself permission. I felt that I should have been on top of it all, and that just added an extra layer of shame to all the shit that I was going through at a time when my mind could not engage in learning anything else. And I needed that safe space. I had a fantastic therapist, I always talk about her on the show, Rosie Whetstone, who gave me that safe space. And then some very close friends gave me the safe space so I could actually explore and articulate how I actually felt, to get clear to myself, so I could give myself a chance to feel heard, if you know what I mean. And Dan, I was not high functioning. When I had the burnout, I was just like dead-eye zombie. There was just nothing there. Things that I could no more of DJ Glastonbury, much as I would love to do that in the future, but I could have no more of DJ that then than flown in the air. I was just in that dead-eye zombie place. Couldn't do it.
Now, Carol, your colleague Kim Page has made some very interesting points. I read them out because a lot of people just listen to the show; they're not seeing it, so I'm not double. Talk about first aid, mental health first aiders, which I think is a very dangerous road to follow. Quite frankly, Kim Page training the wrong people as well in some places. Kim, I agree with you 100%. And Kim then comes back because Kim has been emailing me like forever. A more useful question is, instead of saying how are you, which you can say fine, and that's the end of that, that's a closed door. What are you up to? So that someone can talk about facts as well as feelings. And then over in America, Clark is saying stress is a killer. Yeah.
I've started asking a select group of people, how's your well-being? I'll say it to my daughter if she gets a little bit stressed about things. How's your well-being? Is your well-being okay? And it's quite a nice thing to check in with people. And if not, then we can talk about it. And at the very least, giving someone, like you say, Carol, that space to be heard, to take off that mask, to drop all the shoulds, and to say, actually, this is how I'm feeling. I feel shit, and at least validating it for yourself. Because if you don't validate it for yourself,
but Carol, do you find
again and again.
Carol, do you find there are people who simply will not open up? And I know several.
Yes,
when you do your best, and then you realise that you have to walk away because right.
I think that, yes, there are people who find it very difficult to open up, whatever question you were to ask. So Kim went down the route of asking more a factual question. It may work for some, but you're still not getting to how they're actually feeling. So yes, but it is a question. The most important thing is to make time for somebody, because with our lives and our busy lives and our phones and our computers and everything that takes us away, we are disturbed the whole time. We're interrupted the whole time. So to give somebody purely time for them, whatever question you ask is the most important. So therefore, just give them time, give them permission. And it's really saying, it's okay for you to share with me. It's okay for you to talk to me. How can I help you? It could be as simple as that. Let's chat. Let's go for a coffee. Put your phone away. In the frenetic activity and lives we all have, we rarely make that time for people. We're always too busy, and we all experience this busyness, addiction. We're
busy doing nonsense. Most of it is nonsense.
See, I
It's just
heard a
rubbish.
theory
When you
that
analyse your day,
the
so
term
much of it
in the
is just
90s,
garbage.
when this conversation was just beginning to gather momentum in the 90s, I think, just beginning to. I think it's about the time Daniel Goleman wrote Emotional Intelligence. We started to think, hang on, there is something in this. We need it. The phrase busy holism came into our lexicon. And there is a theory posited that a lot of people are
Say it again.
busy holism. Like alcoholism, but busy, a busy holic, a busy holism. I'll pop it on the screen.
Yes,
But,
okay.
but
I
a lot
like
of
it.
people,
I like that.
but a lot of people apparently, and there's this theory muted. I don't know what you think about this, everybody, is that sometimes people are just busy because they're kind of running away from how they really feel, or they just feel off and they don't know why. So to do it, it's kind of a coping mechanism, not unlike drinking, not unlike any addictive thing, except this time it's busy, just busy. So you have to avoid kind of looking at yourself and asking yourself what the problem is, checking in with yourself, which we're not good at doing. Hey, we can't even check in with other people. It's best to check in with ourselves, for God's sake, you know?
Do you think that's also because society isn't allowing us to switch off?
No,
But this weekend,
not at all.
for the last 3 days, well, 4 days since Thursday, I come back yesterday. Me and a mate, we went up to the Peak District and camping on the mountains and all sorts just to switch off. And we actively do that purely and utterly for our mental health, because we go there, it's absolutely pissing it down with rain, it's freezing, no mobile phone signal, but it allows me just to completely and utterly reset from society.
Yes, no internet, but a much better connection, if you know what I mean.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I think that is so important to take that time out, to take your downtime and all that sort of thing. And you're right, society encourages us. Society's message seems to be: the harder you work, nose to the grindstone, not fun, stress, then eventually, if you pass the test, and it's a pretty stringent one, then you may get some of the things you want and be happy. The science now says the complete opposite, and I think this ties in with your message really well. It's get happy first, and then your endeavors are likely to be a lot more successful. And they've done several experiments now that's actually proven. It's happiness equals success, not the other way around. It's not the other way around.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I think what Dan has said there is so important, which is to know what actually you want for yourself. So he goes away for the weekend for a few days. He knows that helps him, that's supportive for him, that's his quiet time. We all need to have times like that, whether it's for 3 days or whether it's for 10 minutes during a day. You can't always go away for 3 days at the weekend, but you can take time out during the day. And that's what people are not doing. So this busyness that there is with everybody, people get addicted to it. Why? Because it stops them from having to think about the challenges that they're going through. It stops them from having to worry about all of the things that they can't handle. And so they go on to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. So the busyness is always there for you.
Yeah, and it works a bit at first, for a day or maybe a week or a month if you're lucky, but then eventually it just leads to burnout. And it's so much better to notice the signals earlier on, because if I'd have known earlier on and known what to do about it, the burnout thing probably wouldn't have happened to me. And it's like, first of all, the universe throws you a pebble, then a stone, and then a brick, and then the whole house collapses, if you know what I mean. But most of us wait until the house collapses before we go, maybe I'm doing something wrong here. But again, it comes down to, do we allow ourselves to do it? We had a wonderful guest called Helen Snape on here, who's a recovering people pleaser. And if your life is all about pleasing other people or pleasing society, you won't even think you're allowed to ask yourself the question, the audacious question, particularly for women: what do I need? What's going to help for my well-being? And women are worse than men, I would say, because women are, I would say, more giving and more nurturing. So the thought of taking some time shock horror for themselves on a regular basis, well, that's almost bloody sacrilegious.
And I think there's an interesting question that Kim's just put up here, which is, why do we ignore our own health so much? And we do. We think.
I think we just answered it, Kim.
We did. And you think, we talk about, we don't make ourselves our own priority. We are one machine. This is one thing we cannot delegate to anybody else. We have to look after it ourselves. And if we don't, you mentioned burnout. Burnout is not that far away from many people. Are there the signs and symptoms of burnout? Yes, there are. Does it burnout just happen very quickly overnight? No, it doesn't. It absolutely doesn't.
Oh no, it's insidious. It's a creeper.
It's a slippery slope to burnout. And once you've reached burnout, it is a very, very hard call, if ever, to actually get back to where you were. And in some ways, you don't want to get back to where you were, because all the things that cause the burnout is where you don't want to be again. So it's a time for reassessment, reflecting, and what it is that you want to do.
Yeah, absolutely. But it doesn't have to get that extreme. You don't have to go to hell to get to heaven, so to speak. So talking about it in a more preemptive way, which would be a really good thing to do on National Stress Week. And Kim, you're right. That was very well put, Carol. What are the signs and symptoms? You've said it first of all. And something my therapist taught me is a thing called compassion fatigue. Burnout is very, very big in the caring professions, where people are expected to offer care and compassion, but carers need care too. So we can touch on compassion fatigue if you want to as well. But what are the signs and symptoms, in your opinion, Carol and Dan?
Okay, it's not really my opinion, actually. There are signs and symptoms of stress. There's physical, psychological, and emotional. So it could be excessive tiredness. And I'm talking about exhaustion. It could be irritability. It could be you can't bear to see anybody, you switch off from everybody. It could be you've stopped eating. It's going to be different for everybody. One thing for sure,
tiredness and irritability, it was for me.
Yeah, one thing for sure, Neil, is that the signs and symptoms are there. The only question is, what do you do about it? You can either go down the route of like, oh, it doesn't really matter. I've been told to get a grip, so therefore I'm going to try my best. Or you can actually say, this is really serious. I have one body, one machine, I have to look after it. So prior to anything else dramatic happening, you actually need to not pretend that you can beat the system, because you can't. You can't beat the system.
You can't.
You hit yourself, and I'm sure Dan is nodding there. You can't beat the system. And
you're really passionate. You're really passionate about this, Carol, aren't you?
Because if we asked Dan why is it that blokes think they can, not all, but some blokes think they can beat the system. I'm going to man up. I'm going to get on with it. It's not a problem. Why do you think that is, Dan?
I think it's in our DNA that we're fixers. We want to fix things, even though we know damn well that we can't fix it. And I see it time and time again. I've done hundreds and hundreds of videos, one-on-one conversations about mental health with men. They're all over the internet, and it's always, I'll always ask a question: how did you get to that? How did you get to that moment where like your brain has stopped? And they're just like, I just couldn't fix it. I tried fixing it. I've done it myself. I've been burnt out a few times. Man Up's actually burnt me out once before. Here's me preaching. I had to take like 3 months away from it. And I'm preaching of like, speak to people, let blah 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 blah, and it hits you.
And it doesn't surprise me, because you're putting so much effort into what it is that you're doing. It's so meaningful to you that sometimes you can just get caught up with it. You need to be able to take away some time, like you take some time away from what it is that you're doing. And one of our reasons that I'm so delighted you're on board as our sponsor, ISMA's sponsor, and supporting Stress Awareness Week and Stress Awareness Day and the summit, is that you're passionate about what you're doing. As you probably gather, so am I as well. But we need to get out to as many people as possible, because we need to be talking about it, not just for 1 week, but it needs to stay on our agenda all the time. We need to look out for other people who may not necessarily have the skill set and the confidence to say, I need some help. Look out, check in with people, make that phone call, make time.
Self-care needs
Carol,
to be
Carol,
lifestyle.
Carol, let's talk about the summit now, because that's very important. That's something that I'm very honored and proud, and thank you for inviting me to be one of your key speakers. Let's talk about this summit, what you hope to achieve, what it is, and when it is.
Okay, very, very simply, it's online. It's global, so we've gone around the world. So we every year to recognize Stress Awareness Week, we always have a summit. Pre-COVID, it was face-to-face, but now it's online. And one of the reasons for actually having that is to raise the profile of stress and mental health, so people feel confident and want to talk about it. And they're going to hear me continually saying, this is not just about 1 week. The sessions that we have at the summit, we have one on men's health, we have one on finance, one on music, one on bipolar, and one on the future of work. So we're just covering 5 sessions for people to get involved with. And if they're busy on Wednesday, which is when it takes place, they can watch it on catch up as long as you're registered. So it takes a long time to get it together. I really welcome the opportunity for as many people as possible to join us, because we've got.
And how do they do that, Carol? How do they do that?
On the isma.org.uk, go to events and you'll find it plastered everywhere on the website. So you'll see Dan's name there, you'll see Man Up there, you'll see your name there. It is really such an important time, and I'm really so pleased that the media are picking up on it. They want to know what we're doing, and every year it's been like, what are you doing this year, Carol? So sometimes I think maybe we won't do anything, but no, that's the answer, is you can't, because it's an ongoing journey. We are on a journey. We're not going to get to the end and just get to the point where we're going to say we've done it. This is an ongoing journey, because people are people. We need that support. So the summit on Wednesday, isma.org.uk, online. Everybody is welcome to join us.
And I think it's so important.
I'm going to read that out. I'm going to read that out for the people who can't. I'm going to read that out for the people who are only listening. That is isma.org.uk. I'll give it to you one more time. isma.org.uk. Go to the part of the website that says events, and then you'll see everything about this summit, which is on Wednesday, which I know that I've been getting emails about this for 4 months. And I'm delighted to be part of it. Kim Page asks this question. Is burnout a useful term? Does it generalize the seriousness of the issue? Karen,
well, it's a relatively new term. I mean, it's at least we've got a term for it now, because it's only relatively recently been recognised, which is a good thing. What would you call it, Kim, out of interest?
But she'll have to write that. Yeah.
Indeed.
So Kim Page, instead of burnout, what would you term it? Yeah, it's a good question. That's a good question.
It's trendy, isn't it?
Burnout
is trendy.
Well, the problem is when things start to trend.
I think it's collapse would be a better word.
Yeah, maybe. The problem is when things start to trend, they become buzzwords. We've had these before. Wholeness was another one. Burnout, blah, 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 whatever. And then you start to lose some of the original essence that it was created with, if you know what I mean. When suddenly it's like OCD. Oh, I check my lights twice. I'm OCD. No, you're not. Do you know what I mean? It loses a bit of the original essence. That's the problem when things trend. But in a sense, it's good it's trending because we're talking about it.
But I think if you look at like platforms like LinkedIn, which is I run a couple of businesses and all this kind of stuff. So and it's like people being burnt out is actually quite a popular thing. It's like, look how hard I've worked, and everyone's like, oh, whoopie-doo-dah, look at you, look how awesome you are. And actually, I think it's turning people are turning blind to it. Even like the word feelings and even safe space as well. Some of that terminology, even I don't like anymore. I've never
that's been hijacked, hasn't it?
It's and diluted, and I think this is the problem because
Kim is
right. Kim is right. It's been hijacked and diluted, and Kim is right. That things like that do dilute the seriousness of it. A nice thing I heard about burnout was when I read a book on it, because I read several. For there to be burnout, there had to be a fire in the first place, which is a kind of bit of a clever way of saying, if you can get back to your passions, because it probably all started with enthusiasm, and there's nothing wrong with that. We don't want to lose the enthusiasm. It's just when it got crossed the line into hard work, efforting, stress, not enthusiasm. So I thought that was quite
with that in mind, Neil, let me read this from Graham Pack. And it's a question I want to pose to Carol. I'm fortunate that I rarely get stressed, says Graham Pack. It's only when I'm up against a tight deadline for documents to be submitted for court cases. When do daily problems turn into stress? That's a big question.
Okay, so for Graham, it's very simply what he's talking about. He's talking about documents deadlines to be submitted to court. That's what's causing him stress. So can he cope on one day and not another day? Possibly. So there's some days are better than others. Yes, there are. It all depends on what else is going on in his life at that particular point. So we're all managing our lives. We're balancing out all our lives all the time with different things going on in our lives. It doesn't take a huge amount. It doesn't take a huge amount for something to tip us over the edge. So whether we call it burnout or not, it doesn't really matter. We don't need to necessarily get caught up too much with the semantics on that. But what we're saying is that when you get to a position of inability to cope, so when you feel you can't cope, that's the most important. And then it's the slippery slope. So you go from tiredness to exhaustion to burnout. There is a slippery slope. So then we'll say for the current problems that you're going through every day, some days you can manage those. Other days you can't because other things have come into the equation. So it's really just
this mirrors my experience. This is so what you have just articulated, my experience, 100%, Carol. And there's a thing called compassion fatigue as well. And there's 4 stages to it. And it starts with zealot. Stage 1 is zealot. I can do it. You know, you've got a big superhero S on your chest. And there's 2 other stages. And it leads to basically a zombie, which might be another good way of describing burnout.
Yeah.
Carol, let me ask you this. Some of this can be avoided by prioritizing. Some of it can be avoided by just not getting involved in stuff which is simply not important. And I've had to teach myself that, as Neil has been on a long journey. It's very important, A, to be kind to yourself, but B, to get rid of the stuff which is extraneous, people driving you mad who just should go away. You know, I mean, it's ludicrous.
one of those things, Russ, is to actually learn to say no. We find it very difficult to say no because we want to be shown. We want to show everybody we can manage, we can cope, we can do that. It's not a problem. Yeah, pile it on, pile it on, pile it on. And because they're not saying
and this is the problem, Carol. And this is the problem. This is what we were talking with Helen Snape about. All the time you say it's for other people. It's all in the eyes of other people. And other people's opinions can be capricious at the best of times. So if we're constantly working to fill that void within us for what other people want us to be, we're going to fail every time. And then beat ourselves up for being a failure. And it's just it's the wrong
and they're
question
using you.
It's what do I need? What do I need so I can be at my best? You can't give from an empty cup. I'm always preaching that on here. It's like the aeroplane. Put on your own oxygen mask first, and then pick your favorite child. You know, but always put your own on
and
first.
People are users. People are users. People will drive you crazy because they want something from you, and it's very important to know what is important, what isn't important. Get rid of the people who are no good to you.
But also
your energy vampires.
Also the point there of making sure that you have that you feel okay about saying no. Saying no is really key for so many people. You mentioned prioritization, extremely important. Know what's important to you in your week. Know what's unimportant to you and deal with the important stuff first. But learning to say no, it usually dates back to our childhood. Your parents say to put the toys away, and you say, yeah, okay, you're acknowledged for doing things because, yes, will you do something? Yes, I will do it. But now we find it very difficult to say at the moment. Unfortunately, I can't do it at the moment, but when I can do it. So you need to teach people. I spend so much time teaching managers how to say no. There are techniques on how to say no, teach them to say no, and then it's okay to do that. Rather than thinking, is it going to be rude? Is it going to be showing that I can't cope? No, it's not. It's having the confidence to say,
no, it's not. It's not. And also, Carol, stop looking for excuses. We've talked about this a lot on the Daily Show. Stop thinking, I've got to make up. Just say, I don't want to go. And they go, why not? Because I don't want to go. You don't need to come up with, I've got to take my dog to the vet and I've got to go to the garage. No, just say, I don't want to go. Sorry. That's it.
But you've got to have the confidence, and you've got to feel confident in yourself and resilient in yourself to actually say that. Because if you're feeling fragile or you're feeling vulnerable, the chances are you don't like to say no. But I mean, I
understand that. I understand that, but these people are really not good for your mental health. Yes. They're really not. When you're being pulled in 1,000,001 directions by people who don't actually care about you. They want something from you. And the moment you learn they just want something from you.
Try starting a men's mental health charity. You'll learn the people who want. very
I don't
quickly.
know. Try starting 2 radio stations, fella.
Yeah,
then you know
there
the
you go.
people who
Yeah,
are real
well,
and the people,
everybody
who are
wants.
just time wasters.
Yeah,
Try doing
absolutely.
2 radio stations and running them for 5-6 years, and then from scratch with
Yeah.
your own investment. And then you know
Bit-
who the
bit-
people are
yeah.
worth having with and the people who are absolute waste of time and will
Exactly.
happily kick you to the curb when it serves them.
Yeah.
You don't have
Yeah,
to
I
tell
think
me
people
that.
will
Honestly.
also, if they see
man,
a platform,
there.
if they want promotion on
I'm
that platform,
there.
they're just going to, But this is not really about the ethos of this, and obviously the charity that you run down, and none of this is about self promotion, is it? Of course not. But happy side
It's
effect
about
maybe.
what
But you're right.
coming
He will
from
get
a
the
good
hangers on
place.
it.
Neil is an amazing man. What Neil does comes from a really phenomenal. I've worked with Neil for many, many years, decades. And when Neil speaks, it comes. Although we drive each other mad, it comes from the heart. It comes from a really good place because Neil wants to affect change. It's exactly why Howard Jameson, Penny Horner, and myself started men's radio and women's radio. We had a genuine desire to effect change. Everything that you're on about with your stress and everything is the tip of the iceberg of what we wanted to do. It's not about us. It genuinely is not about us. I'm passionate about it. I mean, this week we're doing this with you. I'm on your panel on Wednesday. The following week, I'm giving a speech, which I think is right up Daniel's giving a talk, actually. And tickets are available, so I can't remember, talk about it later, about why men don't talk.
Yeah.
Why men don't talk. I'm giving it like a lecture about it because we don't. Carol, I would say
I like your website, by the way, Daniel. Just having a look at that at the moment.
Thank you.
Home,
Yeah.
Our Mission, all kinds of videos on there,
it's
and
cool stuff. It's cool stuff.
big clickable button saying "Get help," which is fantastic. Yeah, manup.how.
Yeah,
And
thank you.
be, I mean, if we learn anything from this hour today, and I don't know how many times I got to say this, but I'll say it till I drop. Don't be afraid to ask. There's no shame. There's no weakness. Neil is a living embodiment. He went right to the brink. He's been very open about it. And I wasn't in touch with Neil in those days. 3-4 years ago, we drifted apart. And don't be afraid. If you're feeling like, hey, I'm drowning here, it's okay to say that. It really, and don't say it to your first aider, mental health person in your ad agency or your widget factory. God's sake, say it to someone close to you. I'm sorry, I'm really passionate about it.
Actually, Ross, it doesn't have to be somebody close to you. It could be, we're talking about somebody who will listen to you and actively listen to you. So choose that person, because your very nearest and dearest may be great on advice, but lousy in being a good listener. So choose the person you're going to open up to wisely. Otherwise, you're going to get a flea in your ear and you'll think to yourself, I'm really sorry I ever started this conversation. So when, Man Up has its big help button, it really means it. Go to the right place, find the right people, find out who your dream team are going to be when you have a problem. That's who you need to go to. And it may or may not be your mental health first aider. And I'm saying may or may not. Find the person who will actively listen and make time for you.
But
and time, I'm so sorry. I just want to make one quick point, Daniel, then straight back to you. Carol, what you just said is so important. Time is important. This is not a 5-minute conversation. If you're really struggling, don't try and do it in a lift when you got, 30 seconds. That ain't going to work. You've really got to set time aside. Daniel, what were you about to say?
No, I was going to say, I back up what Carol said, but I think also I'm speaking to the people. I guess if you're lucky enough that you're trusted enough that somebody's coming up to you to say, like, I've got a bit of a life pickle, please learn to shut up. Let them talk. Don't try and fix it. Don't try and even give advice unless they ask. Just listen to them, and that's it. And also, the massive plead is if somebody is going to be talking to you about whatever life problem, yet again, I don't want to repeat myself, don't put on the bloody white coat. speak to them how you'd normally speak to them. One of my good friends, my good friend who's also a chair trustee in Man Up, he knows when I'm going a bit when I've got the crazies. He's like, Dan, you're acting a bit of a prick, mate. What's wrong? I know something's wrong with you. Obviously, I'm not saying that I'd never walk up to Carol and say, Carol, what's going on with you? What's going on with you? Because I don't know her well enough. Me and Steve have got a good relationship. Even my wife is like, Dan, you need to go camping. Get out of the house. Go race your mates. Right.
Totally.
It's interesting too, Dan, that we go to different people for different things, and the phrase "dream team" was used, and that's so important. And there was a beautiful quote I read in a book. That's what I was looking for, and I've just found it. And this lady says, as I've gotten older, I've become more selective with my friendships. I now know that I need friends that will give me pep talks. I need friends that will physically hold me. I need friends who will give me the harsh, plain truth. And I need friends that will just sit with me in my grief. And it's rare to find that all in one person, I would say.
And Neil, you won't find it all in one person. Hence, that's why we need the dream team. So therefore, you may not have nearest and dearest who are going to listen to you. You may go outside of your nearest and dearest. It could be a colleague. It could be a friend. It could be a next door neighbor. It doesn't really matter who it is. You cannot get all things from one person. The person who you live with or who you're very close to may actually not be a good listener, but they're fabulous in many other ways. Then go outside that. Your dream team needs to comprise so many different people who give you different things and who do one thing. They accept you for who you are. That they'll give you time and they accept you, warts and all, whether you're happy, whether you're sad, however you're feeling, they accept you.
Yeah, I am blessed enough now to have people like that in my life. Very much so. And you're right. I think also we put too much of a dependency on our relationships. I think we find if we think we've got a partner, they're going to be all things to us, and that isn't true. And it's our responsibility, even a wife or a husband or a partner or whatever. You know, you can't. We've all got our own needs, and we've all got our own dream team, and we can be a support to each other. But to be the whole enchilada to everyone,
quite impossible. It's quite impossible.
Who are you to somebody else? Could you be in would somebody choose you, Neil, to be in their dream team? Question mark. So
I would like to think so, but I couldn't be all things to that person.
No,
I mean, the sweet spot is that everyone is giving what they've got an abundance to give, and it all kind of harmonizes. Exactly. And then it's a very abundant world, and that's lovely. Chrissy
like Richards in Spain. She's in Spain, by the way. So you're being watched and listened to all over the world, by the way, you guys. Chrissy says this. She sits on a farm in the middle of nowhere, actually. I'm a good listener. I've had a lot of strangers talk to me and open up with their problems, and that's great. There's another thing I want to ask you. I'm going to start with Carol, then we go on to Daniel. How do you ensure that their problems don't become your problems? How do you ensure that you don't get... I'm going to use a provocative language, so bear with me. Neither of you will like it, but there you go. It's life. How do you ensure you don't get infected and come away feeling absolutely dreadful, and you've taken on their stuff and they just march happily on, you know?
Okay, one more.
How do you deal with your own oxygen mask first and saying no if you have to?
Neil, no, how do you make sure that doesn't happen? That you don't get drained by energy vampires?
We need to use empathy. Empathy is having one foot in the other person's world and not both. If you have both feet in the other person's world, you're not of any help to them at all. Also, to remain a caring listener, but also to remain objective. Because if you don't remain objective, as you rightly said, Russ, you're going to be caught up with everything else that's going on. You're going to end up with the monkey on your back. That's not what it's all about. This is about giving yourselves giving somebody else an opportunity to talk to you, to offer active listening, to make time, but not to walk away with their problems. You've got enough of your own.
No.
A good analogy is
really
throw, if a man was drowning, or a woman, or anyone for that matter, you would throw them a rope and pull them to shore. You wouldn't jump in and drown with them. And there's a lovely term from Buddhism as well. And I think weep with one eye for you.
What's that? Say that again. Weep with one eye.
I didn't know that, but I like it.
Blimey. I like that. Oh, I like that. I weep with one eye.
Well, you can thank the Buddha for
So,
that one.
Dan, how do you? I can't believe it's not Daniel. There you go. Daniel, how do you ensure that you keep yourself? Shut up, Neil. How do you keep protected?
Well,
How do you protect yourself? Carol's made some
Well,
great.
for the first 18 months, I'll just speak through Man Up, because Man Up's when it got really. The first 18 months of Man Up, I got massively depressed and burnt out, because I was constantly speaking to mums and spouses of basically people who have died, normally by suicide. And it hit me really, really hard. So I tried to just go, right, okay, how can I help this person without helping them directly? If that means sending them over to the stress awareness website or the Samaritans, or it doesn't really matter what it is, then I will do that. But also, the one thing what made a massive difference is therapy. Weekly therapy. You cannot. I used to think therapy was a load of tosh. I've been through a few therapists now. Found a perfect one, James Elliott. I don't mind plugging him because he's brilliant. A good therapist, somebody who's completely and utterly impartial. He can just
I look forward to receiving sponsorship for the show.
Yeah, he's really a godsend. He really is. But I think the main thing is I can't fix other people's problems. I can listen to it, but I can't fix it. The minute you can take away that you can't fix, or accept that you can't fix everybody's problems, you won't take it up. Just listen.
Here's a question coming in from Graham Pack.
Which add on to that, just to say that when you're listening, signpost people. So it could be helpful for you to talk to this person or that person.
That's what we do here.
People at the same time.
That's what we do. Yep.
Yeah.
It's exactly the thing when we set it up. When we set up Men's Radio in January 2019, a year after Women's Radio in 2018, we always said we're not the experts. We're merely, like a conduit. We'll point you in the right direction. We're not going to give you advice. That's not what we do. Graham Pack asks this. Good question. Where is the dividing line with people chatting to you and asking for help and advice, and those that are constantly moaning and whinging? Oh,
by
boy.
gauging
Good
how
question.
drained you feel after talking to them, Graham.
That there is Neil, say that again, because that was gold.
By gauging how drained or not you feel after talking to them.
Now keep saying it, because that is pretty much it. I get it with Man Up all the time. It's just when you're just like I can't. I've got nothing to give to this person. I can't do anything else with this person. Sadly, it's time just to walk away.
And there is a school of thought that perhaps they're in a situation to learn something. And one quite enlightened person said to me once, and I'm certainly not saying turn people away, not at all, but he said to me quite directly, who are you to take away what they need to learn? You know what I mean? And that pulled me up short. Whoa, okay. But I looked at the alternative, which was overgiving, which led to burnout, and then I was no good to anyone.
It comes down to a word of boundaries. So if somebody is whinging and moaning all the time, it's actually knowing how far you can actually go, which means if you can't listen anymore because it's draining you out completely and they're completely moaning and whinging and all that, then it's knowing how to bring that conversation to an end. So you may refer them to somebody else. Well, maybe it's a good idea for you to speak to the Samaritans. I was a Samaritan for 20 years. Samaritans are there to listen really 24/7.
Oh,
so
wow.
therefore, bear that in mind. Just bear that in mind. I mean, set up in 1953 and they're still running a very good business. So therefore, there's a listening business. There is a need. So do people whinge and whinge and whinge? Yes, because maybe they don't know where to go. You don't want it to come onto yourself. No, you don't. You don't want to get caught up with that. Of course, you're not. So you need your boundaries. You need objectivity. No question of that.
Can't disagree with that.
Absolutely. Good answer. Yeah.
Can I just pick up something, Russ, that you mentioned about in the lift?
That's
You said
interesting. Guys,
about...
yes, please do.
Okay, you mentioned about it's not necessarily a good time to speak to somebody in the lift. And I agree with you. The only bit I'd pick up on, sometimes people grab you in the lift or in the car park because it's neutral, because it's easy, and because it's non-threatening. So somebody may say something to you in the lift. It's not the right time to go heavily into it. I accept that. but maybe to put them on hold to another time would be useful. So car parks, lifts, coffee machines
Correct.
are good
A point.
initially.
Yeah. The point I was making, Carol, you're absolutely right. I agree with you wholeheartedly. The point I was making is you're not going to get it dealt with in a lift journey between floor
no
15
way.
and floor
No way.
12. It ain't going to happen.
No way.
Chrissy Richards out in Spain. Listen to this. I mean, you think you got problems, listen to this. It's my brother's funeral tomorrow. Chrissy, from everybody at Men's Radio Station and Women's Radio Station, our deepest condolences to you.
We send you love, Chrissy.
So you just, Chrissy, you have been through it the last 16 months. My God. It's my brother's funeral tomorrow, and I can't be there. I'm not happy, but listening to all of you is helping me to cope with it. There you go.
Yeah, just being part of a conversation can be helpful.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Daniel and Carol, we wish you well. I will be seeing presumably both of you on Wednesday morning at 9:30 on the seminar and the marvelous webinar and everything like that, and try not to make a complete arse of myself, which is highly likely, but there you go. Guys, thank you so much. The work that you're doing is marvelous, both of you individually, and together you're even stronger. So Daniel Summers, Carol Spears, thank you so much. See you Wednesday. Okay, well, there we go.
Are you doing the show Wednesday, old chap?
Yeah, sure. I'm doing the show Wednesday. Yeah, I've arranged it. I had to do all of that to make sure that I'm on at 9:30, so I could do the show at 12. And there we go.
Good
Chrissy
luck. What a couple
Richards,
of fantastic guests.
Yeah, they were brilliant guests. It's been, I don't know how many. It's been a tsunami of emails for months, but well worth it. Well worth it. Nothing comes easy in this world, and you got to do it. I'm changing the subject, and that's all there is to it. And I don't blooming well care. There are about 4 seats left. I think there's 3 seats left for the 3 o'clock show, and I think maybe 4 or 6 seats, if that, left for the 6 o'clock show. Unwise, but not illegal. This Sunday at the German Street Theatre, which is in, oddly enough, German Street, and I will plug it because to have 2 full houses would be fantastic. I'm happy with how we got it, but it'd be even better. Love to see you there. As I said, there's literally about 6 tickets across 2 shows left. So it's 0207 287 2875. 0207.
I know a great warm-up stand-up comedian. Oh, never mind.
When you see the show, you'll understand why it wouldn't.
Don't be so silly. Can we give those addresses out again if people want to get involved with what they've heard today? It's manup.how if you'd like to get in touch with Dan. isma.org.uk, where you can sign up for the online summit and get all the fantastic talks and information. Other words that came up today: busy hillism. Are you a busy holic?
I love that.
This rather nice thing from Buddhism: weep with one eye, which means remain detached, but you can still have compassion and empathy. 1 foot in, 1 foot out. There's many ways of saying it. And of course, self-care, as we always preach, is not selfish. And maybe we should dedicate the show to this man today.
I think we absolutely should, because in a grim, rotten world, he made us laugh and he gave us joy, and he wanted to be remembered not for Friends, not for his acting. He wanted to be remembered for hopefully the help that he gave to others, and I think that is
there was a wonderful quote, and I think I screenshotted it. If we've got time, I'll have a quick look, see if I can find. Yes, here it is. This was a direct quote from Matthew Perry before he died. It'd be a lovely way to finish the show today. I've had a lot of ups and downs in my life. I'm still working through it personally, but the best thing about me is that if an alcoholic or a drug addict comes up to me and says, "Will you help me?" I'll always say, "Yes, I know how to do that. I will do that for you, even though I can't always do it for myself." I've got that song, "I'll Be There For You," in my head. So I do that whenever I can, in groups or one-on-one. And I created the Perry House in Malibu, a sober living facility for men. Also wrote my play, The End of Longing, which is a personal message to the world, an exaggerated form of me as a drunk. I had something important to say to people like me and to people that love people like me. When I die, I know people will talk about friends. And I'm glad of that. Happy I've done some solid work as an actor, that's putting it mildly, as well as given people multiple chances to make fun of my struggles on the World Wide Web. But when I die, As far as my so-called accomplishments go, it would be nice if friends were listed far behind the things I did to try and help other people. I know it won't happen, but it would be nice. Maybe, Matthew, it will happen. And I'll certainly give a shout out for that.
And
anytime
hopefully now all we could wish for is at peace.
Yeah.
And peace is a word we can certainly do a lot more with. Neil and I will be back on Wednesday. Until then, try and stay out of trouble.
Good afternoon. Love to Chrissy Richards as well.
Absolutely. Chrissy, our condolences.